The long wait for housing is almost over. For the victims of KwaZulu-Natal's deadly floods, the provincial government has now identified land to build new homes on. The April floods left thousands of people homeless. Meanwhile, Premier Sihle Zikalala is looking to turn around the state of local government in the province. At least 8 municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal are under administration currently. And Zikalala led the local government in Daba in Durban today, trying to address some of the major service delivery issues. So our senior reporters Sipamandla Gowe and Dessen Thate have been following those two strands of stories from that province, and they join us now. So Dessen, let's start with you, and a very good evening to you. Talk to me about the flood victims and their homes and what the plan is, because this has been a bone of contention for a few months now.
No, definitely, Sal. It's been an absolute crisis because after the floods, we knew that those victims had been confined to these community halls. Some of them had moved in with other relatives, but by and large, they had lost everything during that. And a large portion of them had come from informal settlements around Durban. So there was already an issue with housing in the city. The backlog is well known. The last time I spoke to the MEC for Human Settlements, he told me that that backlog was over 700,000, and that's 700,000 homes I'm talking about that needed to be built. So this problem existed already, and then it was exacerbated by what happened during those floods and with so many people losing their homes. So finally, a little bit of good news now with some of those sites being identified. These are sites where there will be temporary residential units that will be built on them. And the plan is that on those very sites, in the long term, there'll be more permanent structures that will be developed. We saw pictures of some of them. They look like flats. So you'd have several stories, or double story, for example, and you have multiple families that are living in those units. So we were promised that it would not be, as some people had anticipated, some metal structures or anything that resembles a shack. Instead, it's going to be proper housing, even the temporary units. But let's listen into what Sihle Zikalala had to say when he unpacked some of the figures and the numbers behind this project.
The total amount applied for was about 1.1 million. We also indicated to the Disaster Management Center that the medium to long-term relief is estimated at 17.8 billion. The total required for implementing municipal infrastructure repairs is estimated at 12.6 billion, whilst the sector department is estimated at 5.1 billion. In this regard, the total amount required for the post-disaster recovery in the whole province is estimated at 17.8 billion.
17.8 billion, that's a lot of money, but it puts a price tag on some of the damage caused from those April floods. So, Dessen, did you get time frames? You've said that they've identified sites of land, it's going to be proper temporary sort of flats that people are going to be staying in. Any time frame on when they're going to be moved into those units? And what about the people who've been spending years on the housing waiting list? Do these flood victims jump the queue?
Well, let me put this into perspective, because that was one of the questions that I asked of the Human Settlements MEC, and I'll get to that in a second. But currently, there are 84 what they call mass care centers. That's where these flood victims are housed. So of those, 44 of them have been linked to what's called a land parcel. So effectively what this is these are plots of land, some of them within suburbs, for example, where it's been identified, mostly government owned, and that's where these houses, both the temporary and then the permanent structures, will be placed. So the logical question is, what happens to all of those other people that have been living in transit camps, for example, for all of these years? And the MEC's response to me was very simple. He says that this is a process that's happening parallel to that. So how it will be executed, I guess that's what we need to watch. But basically what he's saying is that this doesn't hinder any of the existing projects. But by virtue of people still being in transit camps for that long, I guess that gives an indication of how well or otherwise, those other projects are going. So that's definitely one to watch. But one thing that was stressed was that this was an emergency and this needs to be attended to now. In his words, we can't wait until tomorrow. These people need to be rehomed as soon as possible.
And then some residents apparently don't want flood victims living nearby. You spoken to them?
I did. So initially, you would remember that in the rush of everything that happened post-flood, we saw reports of residents in some communities complaining about the possibility of people being relocated into these vacant plots of land. But in the conversations that we had with some of the residents today, for example, in Reservoir Hills, it seems that the issue was over the communication. So they felt that these messages or this message was not communicated to them about how it would be executed and how it would be done. They kind of envisioned that there would be an informal settlement that would pop up right next door to where they live. So what they're saying is that, look, if it's done right and if there is engagement and if we know what's happening, it's fine. I'll let you listen into an interview that I conducted with the residents there in Reservoir Hills today.
We want people to have decent housing, proper housing, not temporary housing. And when they started here, they never have proper engagement with us. First of all, our residents got excited when they saw the TLB coming here and they thought they're going to demolish the temple. But if you have proper engagement with us, things would have went smoother. My question is, we want people to live next to us, side by side. We live in Reservoir Hills for many years, and we got this check settlement. We got no problem with them. They are one of the best residents you can have around you. Yeah. Right. Now my question is, you want to put TRU, that's a temporary structure. How long that temporary structure is going to be on this land? What guarantees we got the permanent housing will come here? We got the mayor here, and he's prepared with the infrastructure that's coming in, water, sewer, and the whole works. At this moment in time, we got about 3 or 4 sewer lines are not functioning. They're all broken, and nobody is doing a damn thing about it.
Yeah, I mean, making the point that communication is absolutely critical, and also the communities, all communities have been affected in and around Durban, and there are lots of issues to be addressed. And it's going to take place step by step. So, Dessen, I'm going to bring in Sipha Mandla now. Now, Sipha, you were at an Indaba with the Premier looking at a broader issue and a broader problem, and that is the state of municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal. We know nationally we've got real problems at local government level, but today's meeting was to look at the specific problems, a lot of it highlighted, I would imagine, in the Auditor General's recent report. Tell us more.
There's nothing new in KwaZulu-Natal. The challenges facing local government sphere is the same, or should I say the challenges facing local government in KwaZulu-Natal are the same as those who are facing many municipalities across the country. Issues of poor financial management, poor and dismal audit outcomes, poor or slow pace of service delivery. Those are the challenges that are facing many municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal. The province has got about 54 municipalities. A number of them are struggling. If I'm not mistaken, about 8 of them are still under administration, and one of them, which is Uthugela, has been under administration for the past 7 years. There is no improvement there. Those are the challenges that were being discussed today to try and, get a sense of what needs to be done to address these challenges. But all the possible solutions are there. The Auditor General, every year when the Auditor General's office releases those audit outcomes, you will get a sense and the picture that is not looking good. And there will be recommendations of what needs to be done, but those are not implemented, and there are clear time frames that are provided, and there are clearly identified possible solutions that can help many municipalities to overcome those challenges that they are facing. But at the center of it really is the slow pace of service delivery, something that worries many residents across KwaZulu-Natal. Sihle Zikalala saying those municipalities that have received disclaimers should be ashamed of themselves, and their leaders and managers should be ashamed as well. Let's take a listen.
We should be honest with ourselves and take constructive criticism from the Auditor General, SALGA, COGTA, and other stakeholders. As reported by AG, the state of South African local government is in decline, and there is an increase in service delivery challenges. The AG has called for strong political leadership and implementation of consequence management. We should therefore be intolerant of mediocrity and incompetence, and we must be more, and more must be done to punish poor performance and reward excellence.
Sipa, I understand that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, was also at this gathering. What did she have to say specifically about Eskom?
Well, she says the issue of the ongoing blackouts is very devastating for municipalities and residents and communities across the country. She says no economy can grow during load shedding, and it's something that Eskom needs to address. But most importantly, you get a sense that she's worried about what is happening when she says these blackouts have got a potential to destabilize the country. Of course, Eskom being one of the most important stakeholders when it comes to dealing with municipalities. There was a meeting between Eskom and the COGTA authorities in KwaZulu-Natal to discuss a number of issues that they are working together on, and one of those is the issue of municipalities that owe Eskom money, but also municipalities that are owed by Eskom. However, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was stressing the point that the issue of load shedding does not only affect municipalities, but it's got serious consequences for the country's economy, and it's got a potential to destabilize South Africa. Let's take a listen.
The load shedding does not only impact on local government or residents, it also impacts on the economy, because no economy can grow on load shedding. So the Eskom issue is a much wider issue, and it's a much broader issue, and it has to be addressed sooner than later, because the economy will just deteriorate. Of course, residents are going to be angry as they are, and the situation is going to be untenable. There's going to be no stability. When residents are angry because they don't get electricity, businesses don't make money, so it's a big problem.
Last quick question to you, Dessen Thathia. You were talking about these 84 centres that have been looking after the people after they lost their homes in the April floods. Did you get specific timelines about when the first people will be moved into these temporary structures?
No, there was nothing specific given to us on those timelines. It was one of the, the obvious questions. But what we were told was that the contractors have been appointed, that this will start to move very quickly now, because the biggest issue, the biggest holdup here was securing that land. Now that that has been done, it means that these units don't take very long to put up, and the flood victims themselves obviously ready to move. So hopefully we will be seeing some movement within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, about time too. Thank you very much for that update, Dessen Thathia, and also Sipa Mandla Goge on that very important gathering to try and address some of the real problems at local government level in the province. Thanks very much to both of you. Do stay with us here on SA Tonight. We've got plenty